a young scientist conducted a terrifying experiment on himself and became invisible. Let's find out how he used this power and why every woman feared him. The scientist Sebastian Kane experiments on laboratory rats. Unfortunately, not all of his tests end successfully. The man has developed a formula for invisibility, but can't create a serum to bring the subject back. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes him, and he rushes to his computer. In the middle of the night, Sebastian calls his colleague and ex-girlfriend Linda, boasting that he's found the correct formula for reversing invisibility. He wants to test it immediately. The man is very proud of himself and already dreams of a Nobel Prize. He drives to his lab, where many test animals are kept, including an invisible gorilla named Isabel. Sebastian's colleague Matthew injects Isabel with another serum. The gorilla bites him and escapes from her cage. The man chases the invisible animal, and chaos breaks out. The scientists advise their partner to use a tranquilizer. They both go looking for Isabel, and using thermal goggles, knock her out with tranquilizer darts. Sebastian wants to try his new serum on the gorilla. Linda arrives at the lab. It turns out she and Sebastian used to date, but she left him. The invisible gorilla is laid on the operating table, and the scientists prepare for the new experiment. Sebastian personally injects Isabel with his miraculous serum and watches as it travels through her bloodstream. Gradually, the gorilla's internal organs become visible. At the same time, her pulse spikes, then her heart stops. The scientists use a defibrillator to bring Isabel back to life. She starts breathing again, becoming more and more visible, until she looks like an ordinary hairy primate. The new serum truly works. Isabel is returned to her cage. The team decides to celebrate their success at a restaurant. They laugh, drink, and toast their victory. But Sebastian feels strangely empty. He's achieved his lifelong dream, yet now sees no new goal ahead. And Linda no longer loves him. She's secretly dating his best friend and colleague, Matthew. Sebastian returns to the lab and looks at the cage with an invisible dog. He wonders what it would be like to be invisible himself. Soon, Sebastian gives a presentation about invisibility, but hides the fact that he's already created a reversal serum. This infuriates his investors. Sebastian explains that the experiment isn't complete. He wants to test it on a real human subject. And that person will be himself. Yes, it's insanely dangerous, but he's a genius scientist and ready to risk everything. Our hero removes his lab coat, lies on the operating table, and injects himself with the invisibility serum. At first, nothing happens. Then, violent convulsions begin. Sebastian screams in pain as his body slowly fades away. His pulse skyrockets and his heart nearly gives out. Linda grabs the defibrillator once again. We see Sebastian's organs, his bones, his cells, and then nothing. The man completely disappears and passes out from shock. After several hours, he finally wakes up and demands that all the lights be turned off. The problem is, he can't close his eyes. Or rather, he does. But since his eyelids are transparent, he still sees everything. Sebastian looks in the mirror and sees nothing. He amuses his co-workers by playing games of hide and seek. They can see him only through infrared. To make things easier, he throws a blanket over himself. Thermal cameras are installed around the lab. At night, Sarah stays on watch, but she falls asleep, and Sebastian quietly slips out of his room. He sneaks into the lab and unbuttons Sarah's blouse. When she wakes up, she screams in terror. Later, sensors are attached to Sebastian's body to monitor his vitals. When he removes them, he sneaks into the women's restroom to spy on another colleague, Janice. She puts on thermal goggles to make sure she's alone. While Linda studies his blood samples, Sebastian moves her soda can and even starts massaging her shoulders. The invisible man flirts with her, asking to spend the night together. But she refuses. 3 days later, Sebastian is injected with the reversal serum meant to restore visibility. At first, everything goes according to plan. His body starts becoming visible again, but soon he begins to suffocate. His vital signs spike dangerously, and he nearly dies. Panicking, Sebastian breaks free, attacks his assistants, and has to be restrained. The scientists manage to revive him, but then the process reverses again, and he becomes invisible once more. When he wakes, Linda tells him the bad news. The new serum doesn't work with human DNA. He almost died, and yet remained invisible. The team creates a rubber mask for him, cutting holes for his eyes and mouth, and shows him his new face in the mirror. Linda and Matthew try to find a cure, but nothing works. Sebastian becomes furious and unstable. He's been invisible for 10 days, and the scientists are still helpless. Tired of being locked up, he escapes the lab to get some fresh air. He drives around the city, frightens children, and then returns to his apartment. Through the window, he notices his beautiful neighbor. Temptation overwhelms him. He takes off all his clothes and commits a terrible act, using his invisibility for evil. Later, Linda visits his apartment and finds his mask and clothes. She returns to the lab and orders everyone to arm themselves with tranquilizer guns. Soon, Sebastian comes back on his own. He feels that the others now treat him like an experimental animal. Another attempt to restore visibility fails. Sebastian explodes in rage, sabotages the surveillance system, and escapes again. He sneaks into Linda's apartment and discovers Matthew there. Finally, he realizes that his ex-lover is dating his best friend. In a fit of jealousy, he smashes the window and storms back to the lab. There, he attacks one of the test dogs. Later that night, Linda senses someone watching her and flees to the lab. But Sebastian isn't there. He has escaped again. Linda decides to report everything to the government committee funding their research. She and Matthew drive to Dr. Kramer's house to tell him about the experiment. Sebastian overhears the conversation, lures Kramer to the pool, and drowns him. The next day, Linda learns that Dr. Kramer drowned in his pool. She and Matthew try to reach the committee, but their access codes no longer work. They realize only one code still functions, Sebastian's. Arming themselves with tranquilizer guns and thermal goggles, they prepare to defend themselves. But Sebastian attacks first, injuring Carter and ambushing Matthew. He raises the lab temperature, so thermal vision becomes useless. Matthew uses a fire extinguisher to track the invisible man, but Sebastian knocks him down. Linda and Sarah find the wounded Carter. Sarah runs for a first aid kit, but Sebastian finds her first. She spills blood from the medical bags to see his footsteps. It briefly makes him visible, but before she can react, he overpowers her and knocks her out. When the others find her, she's already dead. Sebastian kills Frank next and seriously wounds Matthew. He locks Linda and Matthew in a freezing chamber, puts on clothes and his mask, and prepares to leave. Before going, he rigs a bomb to destroy the lab and erase all evidence. Linda tends to Matthew's wound, but they're both freezing, determined to survive. She uses a powerful magnet to escape the ice chamber and free Matthew. She catches up to Sebastian near the elevator and uses a homemade flamethrower to scorch him slightly. Turning on the sprinkler system, she tracks him by the water droplets, but Sebastian sneaks up behind her and knocks her down. Matthew regains consciousness just in time to save her. Sebastian keeps fighting, but hits an electrical panel, getting shocked, which briefly makes him visible again. Linda and Matthew think he's dead. Then they notice the bomb in the lab and crawl into the elevator shaft to escape. The explosion blows the elevator, nearly crushing them. As they climb past the wreckage, Sebastian suddenly appears, grabs Linda, and they fall onto the lift's roof. Sebastian grabs Linda by the throat. His body is half visible now, burnt, bleeding, and terrifying. "You can't stop me," he hisses. "I'm God now." Linda struggles, reaches for a metal pipe, and strikes him across the face. He loses balance and nearly falls, but grabs the elevator cable. The flames from the explosion rise below them, lighting the shaft like a furnace. Linda climbs higher, but Sebastian grabs her ankle again. She finds a loose wire and jams it into the metal pipe. Electric current surges through Sebastian. He screams in agony, his body flickering between visible and invisible. Then he loses grip and falls into the fiery darkness below. The invisible man is gone. Linda collapses, exhausted. Matthew climbs up and helps her out of the shaft. They walk through the ruined corridors of the destroyed laboratory, the dawn light shining through the broken walls. Outside, fire trucks and sirens approach. Linda looks back one last time at the shattered lab where science went too far. She whispers, "He wanted to see everything, and in the end, he saw too much." Matthew takes her hand. They walk away together as the fire consumes the remains of the secret experiment. The camera pans down to the smoldering wreckage of the elevator shaft. For a brief second, we see a faint shimmer, a ripple in the smoke, as if something or someone is still there.